Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started with this meeting. Here for a City Council meeting. It is Monday, March 1st, 2021, and we'll start this meeting with the roll call and determination of quorum.
Here.
Need a new mic.
Her mic isn't on, I don't think.
Okay, so for roll call, Solomon?
Here.
And Weifenbach?
Here.
Jones?
Here.
Drew? Here. Lehman?
Here.
Armstrong?
Here.
Stroman?
Here.
Nordstrom? Evans? Here. Roberts? We have a quorum. And now for the invocation, we're going to go to Council Member Jason Solomon for the invocation, and following that, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here tonight. Tonight we're going to kick it old school as I grew up, and we're going to recite the Lord's Prayer. So if you please join me in prayer. Well, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Jason. And now we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. And before we do that, I have a suggestion, a recommendation from Community Development to move item 27 under the presentation heading to follow the presentation on the Civic Center project. Motion to that effect from Armstrong, second by Lehman. Any other changes to the agenda? If not, all in favor of changing the agenda and adopting it, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. This takes us down to a presentation, a progress report and video on the Civic Center project. We have Civic Center Director Craig Baltzer and the head project guy, he's got his own title, Dave Richardson.
My only role in this was to introduce him, so.
Okay, well, go ahead. I didn't mean to steal your thunder. You know what his title is anyway.
Thanks, Council and Mayor. Just wanted to take the opportunity. We were invited to come here to give you an update on the progress of construction. I want to tell you from the role of the ownership from us, it is going extremely well. And that's because we have great partners with Mortenson and Skull as our builders on this project. It is going very well in the sense that our teams are working really well with each other. I've never been on a project that has been like this. It's been really great. Not that we don't have our daily battles, but it's all been working towards the same goal, each and every one of us. So I did want to introduce to you Dave Richardson. He's a senior project manager on the project. He's got a little bit of a military background and a little military style on the project, which is really aiding us at keeping us on target and on time and on budget. So with that, I'd like to introduce Dave, and he's going to give you a presentation.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Mayor, Council. I do try to hide the military to a bit, but unfortunately it does come out quite regularly. We do want to start off our discussion, our presentation today with, we do have a short video we would like to play, but we do want to start off with we are on budget and we are on schedule. Considering we started construction about 14 months ago, we are tracking to our current plan and we're moving forward as we need to. I was kind of hoping the video would play. Should we play the video? Am I playing the video? Who's playing it? There we go. So just kind of a little bit of a step back in time. This was back in May of last year. Just kind of show what kind of progress we've made to date. A couple key statistics here over the course of the project so far as the video starts to play. We've worked 443 days incident-free, and what that means is 443 days without an accident on the job site. With over 240,000 man-hours put work in place, there's been over 850 men and women working on this project. Currently, we have 165 working on the project as we speak today. We're still projecting to be peaking over about 200 folks kind of working on the arena. As you're kind of walking through the video here, we're looking at the facade and some key things that are going in place that many folks have been able to witness is the exterior as it's been progressing. But we wanted to take a little bit of time and kind of take a sneak peek inside. What we're looking at is the grand stairs and the escalators that are more on the south side of the arena. So a lot of work has been going on inside the arena. A lot of folks have seen the exterior as we talked about, but the things that are working on inside. You know, we are in a unique place in our construction activities right now. We have activities going on from the roofing activities, the permanent roofs going in all the way down to the foundation. It includes a lot of our interior walls. It includes the elevators. Mechanical and our plumbing systems are being installed. What you're kind of walking through right now is the commissary, which is in the northeast corner. The hoods and you're starting to see the ceiling grid going in. So a lot of finish work is going in just as well. Along with the interior activities, we are still focusing a lot on our precast. We're working through the final stages of setting the lower bowl precast, which kind of sets the lower bowl seating. We're finishing up our steel activities, and not to mention our foundation work. We do still have some foundation work going on. Some of the upcoming activities that we're focusing on moving forward is we are set up for March. March is a pretty busy month for us right now. We are expecting our rooftop units, our mechanical units to be delivered and installed this month, along with the steel. The steel is going to wind down. We're going to celebrate our topping out sometime in March. Obviously, we have the interior finishes going on, and we're gearing up for our startup and commissioning activities. That right there, folks, is the boiler room. That's kind of the heart and soul of the mechanical and the plumbing systems right now for the arena. I am happy to stand here today and talk about, you know, when we started the project a little over a year and 4 or 5 months ago, we had a plethora of, we had about 7 alternates that we needed to get incorporated in the project. Currently, we're sitting on 5 of those alternates that have been incorporated into the project. So a huge milestone, huge success for the team as we keep putting work in place. There is a pathway for the final 2. It's just they haven't come to a critical point in our schedule where we need to make that decision. Kind of looking off into the bowl here, there's still quite a bit of activity. What you're looking at is the lower bowl there in the foreground, and as we pan to the right, you're going to start seeing some of the foundation work that's going on. So again, real busy site, real busy activities going on. We are starting to gear up to start the exterior work just as well. So as soon as the weather breaks, which we're hoping it kind of broke, that last cold snap kind of hurt us a little bit, but we will be starting our landscaping and sidewalks and things of that nature on the north side of the arena. Right now we're walking across the concourse, which is on the west side. You know, we're kind of coming in, and I'm going to have to ask for some imaginations here, but we're going to come into a little bit of a, there was a private bar or a bar right there, but as we kind of walk up again, this is kind of looking out over the bowl, just as from the west side looking over towards the east, just to kind of show some of the activities from just a different angle. Catwalk is in place. There's a few little bit of work that still needs to be placed there. We're working real hard to get the roof deck in and finish up with the roof here by April. So again, we're walking across this is going to be the theater level. This is our level 3 of the arena. A lot of work still interior going on, and we're starting to see those walls take shape. Pretty soon we're going to climb up. Now we're up on the upper premium, which the upper premium is now in the project like I indicated. So this space here is going to be built out here within the near future. And I know I'm a little bit short on time, but I was going to pause and see if there was any questions. A little bit of the exterior going on. This is on the north side. Exhaust fans are going in. And again, we're just taking a quick glimpse over the rooftop here. You can see the roofing is going in, and that's where the rooftop units are going to be placed here about the middle of the month. Key component here is the expanded loading dock and kind of the back of the house area, which this area was completed here right before the stock show and actually turned back over to the Civic Center to where it's fully functioning, fully operational, and I believe we received positive feedback from the Sutton Group and those that were involved in the rodeo. So again, appreciate the opportunity to give the update and looking forward to a strong completion.
Thank you, Dave and Craig, for doing that. Pat Jones?
Thank you very much, Mayor. May I ask Dave a question real quick, Mayor? Thank you. So throughout the project, Dave, have there been any of those moments where you said, why the heck did they do that in the planning? Any surprises that had to be fixed or worked out that shouldn't have been there?
Oh, absolutely not. And I know that's probably everybody thinks I'm just going to automatically say that, but no. You know, the planning and the effort that even the Perkins and Will and the design team, local JLG, and everybody's put in place has been tremendous to this point. And it's gotten us to a point where we feel comfortable about the plan, we feel comfortable about executing, we feel comfortable about finishing on time.
I know when we took the tour there a few months ago and walked through, it was just absolutely fabulous, the depth of knowledge of the people that toured us and things. So I'm not surprised at the answer. I'm happy to hear it, but it's wonderful to hear about the progress. So thank you. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Kind of a rookie here, so I'm
If
just-
not, we'll go on to our next presentation, and this is item number 27 on the agenda, a review of current programs and upcoming projects of the Community Development Department. Community Development Director Ken Young.
Okay, Council and Mayor, sure appreciate the opportunity we have to give you this presentation. We'll try to make it as brief as we can, but we wanted to take the opportunity to shine just a little bit. I think we have an excellent department, and we've got a lot of good things going on. And we've been meaning to do this for a while, but it finally came to a good point to be able to do this. So we appreciate that. We will have representation from all of our divisions. There are 5 divisions in community development, and we have a really good team. I'm very proud of them and the work that they do, and so you'll see some of that. And you do have a handout in front of you that you can follow along with. First off, we'll have a few words from Kurt Bechtel, our interim building official, followed by Michelle Schulke from CDBG program, or the Community Development Block Grant Program, followed by Matt Ozarek from Code Enforcement, then Vicki Fisher from Current Planning, and Patsy Horton, who leads the Long Range Planning Division, will be represented by Sarah Hansel and Kip Harrington with some presentations. So I'll turn it over to them. Kurt.
And then just arrow down when you want to go to the next one.
So my name is Kurt Bechtel. Thanks for the mayor, council, all you people. I'm the building official right now. Basically, our department, Building Services, we're the point of contact for any permit you need in Rapid City, as far as building permits, plumbing permits, electrical permits, air quality permits, you name it. We're the first stop that everybody makes. Last year, we had another great year. What button should you say to push? Oh. Had a lot of big projects. Issued a lot of permits. We were busy every day through all of the COVID thing, nonstop. It never stopped the entire time. It's like one day you thought you were almost caught up, and then it started all over again the next day. And so we did 275 million last year, which was darn good. And we're looking for another year like that this year. We've already got a few big projects coming down the line right now. One is the hospital cancer care addition that I just did a permit for them for the foundation the other day. And that's going to be another $25 million project coming down.
Vicki?
It's stuck.
Oh. Some of the new things we have coming up this year for our division is we have the card knock system, which is going to enable the customer to pay right at the desk where you get the permit. So it should make it a little bit more customer friendly. They don't have to walk downstairs and pay. They can just pay right there and be done with it and leave. And the other one we got started is Bluebeam, which is a plan review system, which basically is going to start enabling people to send their plans in electronically so they can be viewed electronically and no more paper. So no more of the big sets of plans and stuff like that, which is going to be kind of hard for an old school guy like me, but I'm sure we'll get her figured out. And that's about all I have for building services.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. What I would like to do is present to you a quick status report of the Community Development Block Grant Program. And again, my name is Michelle Schulke. In addition to allocating our annual allocation of CDBG funds on an annual basis, we were tasked with implementing about $723,000 in CDBG provided through the CARES Act. We have allocated all of those funds to projects or planning and administration, and we do expect a quick deployment of those funds. We do estimate $470,000 for fiscal year 21 funds, and those funds are allocated to affordable housing, public service, public facility, and economic development projects. In addition to that, we also manage the Neighborhood Lift program, and this is a fairly new program in which we take derelict or tax delinquent properties, clear it out, do mitigation efforts such as asbestos or lead-based paint, and then provide that for a nonprofit. Currently, we have a Black Hills Works project going on over at Curtis Street, and they'll be developing a group home at that lot. We also implement the Neighborhood Restoration Loan Program. That is a one-on-one loan for owner-occupied homes here in Rapid City for critical repairs. Anyone interested in that program can actually reach out to us directly. That's a direct program. And additionally, the Teton Coalition and Rapid City Community Development Corporation, which are now no longer in service, we manage that portfolio of mortgages, and as those pay off, we cycle those back into the program, reallocate them to programs and projects in our strategic plan. A quick overview, as far as the strategic plan goes, we are 3/5 of the way through our 5-year plan, so here's some stats on the progress of housing projects, economic development, again, public facility, and public service programs. Our next step on the in this program or in the division is really to focus on some of the affordable housing goals we've set forth. We do have to put an extra focus on that in the next 2 years to meet our goals, and we really want to target programs that are ready to go and that target the lowest income households. But we will continue supporting public service and public facility projects as well. We do want to expand the purview of the division to look beyond just CDBG, see if there's other programs, partners, or collaborations we can use to meet these needs, especially in affordable housing, but also in our other strategic goals. What we'll be doing over the next year is evaluating our current methods, tweaking those if need be, and explore complementary programs and partners. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having us. I'm Matt Ozarek with Code Enforcement. Our primary goal is to administer and enforce city ordinance as it pertains to nuisance, health, and safety. And there's a shovel with snow on there, but that's obviously not the current case right now. So year to date, these are a little bit skewed. This was before some of the snowfall, so closer to 110 cases that have been opened and 15 or so abatements that have been done this year. We have 3 of us that cover the entire city. It's split up into north, south, and west areas. So aside from the first slide there, we take an active role in boarding up derelict houses and demolishing those when the time comes. And looking onward, we're technically full staffed right now, which is all 3 of us. And so our main goal is going to be to start becoming more proactive, not being as complaint-based, playing a larger role in the citywide cleanup that's coming up here in April. And another main goal of coming up with some more creative solutions for some issues that have been ongoing. So that's all I have. Thank you.
By the way, Kip Harrington is our IT guy as well. Hi, I'm Vicki Fisher. I'm the current planning division manager for the city. We have a staff of 3 current planners and 2 very talented support staff. It's important to note that everything that I'm going to be talking about with you today, Dale Tech's team has a set of engineers that partner with us, and they need to be given credit for that too. When we sit down with the public, and we do so when those preliminary ideas come forward. If someone, whether they want to do an oversized garage or they want to do 500-acre development, we get those phone calls. And we sit down, we get a team of staff together to join us, and it's listening to those ideas and seeing what works and maybe redirecting them when an idea doesn't work exactly. It is the goal of our division to bring forward good quality work that fits with our community while meeting the needs of the developer. I see us as a 3-legged stool. It is not only the city that is one leg, but it is the developer and its council. And we must all work together for this to work. In 2020, we had a really good year with applications. And even with COVID-19 limiting our contact with individuals face-to-face, we have mastered WebEx and Zoom meetings and conference calls. We had 104 subdivision plat applications with 340 new residential lots and 30 new commercial and industrial lots. 35 planned developments, and the important point here is that between the planned developments, which in part were apartments, and with the single-family homes, we created 2,683 additional dwelling units within the city limits of Rapid City last year. And that really goes a long way to meet our growing need that continues to grow. A few of them are listed on the spreadsheet, and it shows that the Elements, LLC, and then KC Lofts, those are both in our downtown area, taking advantage of the urban commercial district that we introduced a few years ago, where we want commercial on the first floor and housing above. And those are great examples of how that works, and we look forward to those being finished off. Orchard Meadows Apartments, 659 units, and then Hanny's Group brought in a mobile home park in Shepherd Hills West. We are also seeing another development known as Tallgrass Apartments. Again, this is a part of Hanny's Shepherd Hills development. They've got initial approval for 606 units. They finalized 161. In this coming year, a few things that we see that are going to truly meet the needs of our growing community is an item that's on your agenda, and we went over at agenda review, which is an ordinance amendment to facilitate the transfer of unplatted property. And if you've got questions later on, we can go into that. But it's certainly going to move forward the ability for a developer to maybe put property in a different LLC to financially protect themselves, or that rancher that just wants to sell their property to someone else to develop it and not be the one to take the lead on addressing all of the subdivision improvements. The Small Homes Residential District, this is a new residential district just like low-density residential, medium-density residential. It will create a district where we have reduced lot sizes for smaller homes, again with the intent to create sustainable, affordable housing. And I must say, in all the ordinances that I've worked on in my 25-plus years here, this is the one that is the most exciting to me. It's the one that's going to bring home real, viable, affordable housing. And we hope to bring that forward to you for final approval yet this year. Landscape ordinance. So many of us hear concerns with the lack of landscaping on newly developed commercial and industrial properties. And our goal is to address the landscape regulation so that the landscaping that is required is more visible to the traveling public. We all acknowledge landscaping is expensive, so we need to put it where it counts most. And then lastly, if many of you have driven around town, you may have noticed that many of the parking lots have ample empty spaces. And what we realize is that our parking regulations are somewhat outdated. We park everything as if it's Black Friday or the Christmas holiday. And we need to look at that and see what we can do to reduce that parking requirement, to minimize that paving, and help reduce the cost so that we can encourage more commercial, industrial, and multifamily.
Good evening, Kip Harrington, Long Range Planning. So I'll talk to you a little bit about some transportation projects that we have coming up. The first one is the Campbell Street Structure Study, and this is the bridge that goes over St. Joseph Street and the railroad tracks on Campbell Street. It is currently programmed by the South Dakota Department of Transportation for replacement in 2027, and if you've ever been through there, you can see there are no ways for bicycles or pedestrians to get through that area. It's strictly a motor vehicle corridor. And so in order to make this more of a multimodal corridor, we want to do this study to determine the best way to move all types of travel through that corridor. And we want to complete that study this year and again get that ready for construction in 2027 so it can go through the entire design phase. Another one we're working on, which we've been wanting to do for a while, is the major street plan revision. So in looking at our metropolitan transportation plan, a number of corridors were identified that may not be suitable for actual construction. These were lines that were drawn on a map upwards of 20 years ago in some instances and were never really examined from an engineering standpoint. So we are taking a look at that this year and trying to come up with some good recommendations, especially in some of the more rugged western portions of the community where there's really no way to build an actual road through those areas. Additional projects that we'll be working on coming up in the next few meetings, you'll see our year-end 2020 population estimate, which we produce every year. You'll also see the traffic count book coming out, which we produce every year. And also just getting started is our transit development plan, which will take a look at our existing transit system and make recommendations on to whether we need to alter or add routes or change our hours of service, or what can we do to help make our transit system work with our growing community. And I will turn it over to Sarah Hansel.
Good evening. I'm here to give an update on two other projects coming out of our Long Range Planning Division. The first is our Phase 3 of our Historic Preservation Plan update. This process is in its final phase, and it is to update the preservation plan, which was last updated in 2009. So the goal for this project really is to update our core planning documents and create goals for future work of the Historic Preservation Commission. Whereas our existing plan focuses more on downtown and West Boulevard and a handful of other sites and structures that are listed on the National Register. The goal of this plan is to really expand beyond that, to go deeper, look at Native American history in Rapid City, post-war structures and sites, diversity in general, including Jewish and African American history in Rapid City, as well as to look at landscapes. And then of course we are going to continue to focus on West Boulevard and downtown areas as well. So this project will be wrapping up in the summer. We've been working with a local consulting firm called Vantage Point Historical Services, led by Eric Abrahamson and Eric Zimmer, and they've been helping the commission to to identify some of these goals and projects and work with the community on an implementation plan for those. The second project I want to give an update on is the strategic housing plan. Research done in 2018 in Rapid City identified that over a quarter of households in Rapid City are housing cost burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of their income on housing. So the focus of this plan is to look at what the city can do to help create more opportunities for housing along a wide income spectrum. So whether you make median income or above median income or much below median income, what are a variety of strategies that the city can take on to help create more opportunities for housing. So this looks at revising land use regulations, supporting the Strategic Housing Trust Fund, which is newly created, and you all have heard a presentation from David Lust on that recently. It looks at options for a rental registration program, proactive rental inspection, building permit fee waiver, and also looking at public transportation and how that can support affordable housing, continuing to study that going forward. And presentation will be given to you all as well as the Planning Commission on this strategic housing plan coming up later this month and into April. So with that, I will hand it back to Ken Young.
Well, thank you to my team. I think you can tell that we have a really good team here, and there's a lot of things going. We like to think of us in community development in hand in hand with Public Works as being the engine of the community, that we're rolling forward very well and have a good program going for assisting the growth and improvement of the community. So thank you. I apologize for this being a little long, but we thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ken, and to everybody. We're going to go to a couple council member comments or questions here. Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. May I ask Michelle to come up to the microphone, Mayor?
Yes.
And Sarah, maybe you too, but Michelle, the term, and first of all, thank you all very much. It's so great to have you here and great for the audience and the people at home to see the faces of the people who make it all happen at our city. Thank you for your great work, and it's wonderful to have you here. Great to see your faces. The term affordable housing gets tossed around all the time by so many people, and I'm dying to know if there's a definition that you use, like the focus on affordable housing. Sarah said affordable housing. Is there a true definition that you're working with, or Sarah, that you're working with to really identify what affordable housing is? I mean, we all think, oh, I can afford this or I can't afford that, but that's not at the heart and soul of it, I assume. So if you could give me some information on that, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councilman. I'll defer to Sarah Hansel for that.
For the strategic housing plan, the definition we're working with is if you pay more than 30% of your income, including what you pay on utilities, on your housing, it's not affordable to you. So instead of focusing on one segment of our population, people who make from X amount to this X amount, and trying to find affordable housing solutions for them, we're really looking at, we're kind of regardless of where you are in the community, what are housing solutions that'll work for you? So if you make, so another term that's used a lot is area median income. So in Rapid City, area median income, the average household income is about $50,000 a year. So the plan looks at some strategies that might target housing opportunities for households that make that much, but it also looks at strategies that might help households that make less than that, or a little bit more than that. So to answer your question, what's affordable depends on how much you make, and the definition then is based on paying 30% or less of what you make on housing.
Okay, and when you say 30% of your income, gross or net?
Gross.
Okay, so there isn't, and I so appreciate that because that's helpful to me. So when people say they're going to build affordable housing, there isn't, it's kind of a misnomer. It's just, it's what's affordable to you, right, based on what your income is. There isn't an area of town that say we're going to build affordable housing. It just depends on what your personal income is. But housing needs to be built that costs various amounts, or rentals that are various amounts to meet the needs of others that based on their 30% of their income. Okay, yes. Thank you. That's very, very helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Darla Drew.
Thank you. First of all, just a comment to Kurt. Your blue Beam project is really welcome. I think it's something I've heard about since I first came to council in 2014, that people wanted to see this type of technology so they didn't have to haul their blueprints all over the place. At least that's how I understand what you explained it as. So kudos on that one. Michelle, a quick question for you. You mentioned the Teton Coalition. Are they gone? Did you absorb them? Where are they at now?
That's a great question. They are dissolved, and any CDBG money that was allocated to their mortgages, we now have those portfolios in-house.
Okay, just because I was familiar with them back in the 80s, and I just wanted to know what happened there, but as long as somebody's overseeing those projects still, thank you. Going on to Matt. So Matt, you say you've got 3 employees for the city, and I think I've asked you this question every year. Do you feel that's an adequate number for our city staff to actually get the job done? I know it's hard for you to say no, but I'd really like to understand.
No, that is a great question. It's 3 people. It's been 3 people for, quite honestly, decades.
Yeah.
And the city definitely hasn't gotten any smaller in population size or area. So I guess the short answer to that is no. I think we could definitely use more employees.
I would really like to see that addressed to the budget, because it's certainly a call that all of us get here, you know, on whether it's snow removal or lawns out of control or whatever it is, you know, so thank you for that. Next on to Vicki. Your comments on the parking lots are very well understood and heard. We have so many parking lots around here that are just are unused, and it does look like it's going to be for Black Friday all the time. That's a requirement that we have to do that?
So in our parking regulations, every use has a parking ratio. If you are a retail outlet, it's 5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. If you're a medical facility, it's 4 parking spaces per 1,000. If you're a restaurant, it's 11 parking spaces per 1,000. Anyone that comes in with a building permit, we look at the square footage and we require the parking. Now please note, and this is universal throughout municipalities, you have to ensure that you've got the necessary parking so that you don't have adjacent property owners fighting over, hey, this guy's using the business next door, but they didn't do as much parking as me, so they're parking in my property and walking over. They're, even with, let's say, working with a business as big as Walmart, and then we park it at 5.5, but Walmart will not build if they can't park at 5.5, because they know at peak demand, they need that parking. So there's that we want to work with too, because if you go by either one of our Walmart stores, 97% of the time there's ample parking at those stores.
Yeah. Okay, well that was just an interesting comment that you made to me, and I don't know how we go about fixing that and making it pliable for the entire year, whether it's holiday season or not, but we do have a lot of parking in this town. And I just made notes on everybody here. Kip, the Campbell Street pedestrian walk, that bicycle path, thank you. I really think we need that there. I know it's going to take a major rebuild, but there are a lot of people using that as a way to get home, whether they're, you know, biking or walking, so thank you for your work on that. I look forward to hearing more about that.
We'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sarah, thank you for your diversity on the community history. We seem to be kind of headed in one direction usually on a lot of these things, and I like to hear that the Black, Jewish, Hispanic, those kinds of communities are also being included as well in your plans. So thank you very much. I yield.
Jason Solomon.
Well, thank you. This is just a general comment to say thanks for serving our city. I think all of you serve in some challenging roles, ever-changing, sometimes thankless, and so I want you to know that you're not thankless, that we're thankful that you're serving our city, and we know that each of you bring your gifts and talents to help make this community better, so thank you. I do want to acknowledge this is Ken Young's final meeting with us. Ken, thank you for serving Rapid City the past several years. It's been a pleasure serving with you. Wish you all the best as you move forward to the next chapter of your life. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a kind of a general question or comment to the whole team is that I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of you at different times and different functions, and each one of you have done a very good job of educating me on what your responsibilities are and what benefit this comes to the city. And it's been a pleasure to serve as a liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission. So I can't say enough about what Sarah Hansel has brought forward to the historic preservation. And I'm only singling out Sarah because of my close working with Sarah through the historic preservation, but I don't mean to discount what the other folks have relayed on to me. But I thank you, Councilman Jones. I want to thank you for bringing that question up about what is affordable housing, because I've been working with that in my own mind to figure out what is affordable housing. So this kind of helps explain what affordable housing really is versus what is housing that's affordable. There's two different segments, and I think you nailed it. So, and bringing out that portion of that conversation. So, to me, there is a significant difference between affordable housing and housing that's affordable. So, thank you, Mr. Jones.
Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this forward. It's refreshing. I'm looking forward to working with all of them. Thank you, Mr. Young, Kip, Kurt, Michelle, Sarah, Vicki, Matt. Thank you, guys. We look forward to you guys bringing forward your ideas in the future. You guys are the ones that make it happen. The people that work the front lines knows what's going on. Hopefully we can continue moving this direction. Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this forward.
All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. No action will be required on that item, so we'll just start back in order with the agenda, which takes us to general public comment, a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. So, speakers tonight, we have 3 minutes for general public comment. You can check these lights here, see how you're doing. First one up, Dan Seffner.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan Seffner, local citizen. Been in Rapid City, I hate to admit how long, 45 years. That shows where I'm at. No, when I walk in the door, the fun part of all this, because tonight's a little different. When I walk in the door, people kind of look at me and go, what does Seffner want? What does Seffner probably want now? What is he after? Well, the fact is we're after nothing but to thank the mayor, the city council for the work that they do. And there's one word that goes along with this: dedication. You can't tell me that you don't have days when you say, are you kidding me? Is it Monday night? Really? Honey, I'm going to be gone. Really? We were going to take, well, I guess I'm going to be at council tonight. Because you know what? Dedication is that. And there's as I worked with Mr. Hillenbrand, his saying was, you know, Dan, if you want to change things, then get involved. Get on the board. Get in the group. Boy, it's pretty easy to sit on the outside and say, this is what you should be doing. I guess you've probably all heard that. Dedication is what it is. Being on the inside is what it is. There's a lot of faces in here with city staff and so forth and so on that I've seen for numerous years. That's all dedication also. So the real thing is we want to thank you from those of us in our group, in our community, for the service that you do, because people have no clue how much is on your desk and how much is in your box and how much there is to think about. And you vote and you make decisions. It was a unique year last year. I would call it very unique for all in the community. You had to make decisions, you had to stand up, and you had to do it. That's not for everyone. but it was what you did. So this is really about thanking you for your work, your support, what you've done to help our community, listening to your team about the building projects and the arena and all the things that are going on. Hey, that takes a good team. That takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of moving forward. So again, I just want to say a lot of us want to just thank you for your support, what you do, and making Monday nights, special meetings, and all the things happen. So thank you again very much.
Thank you, Dan. Next up is Lorraine Besmer.
My name is Lorraine Besmer. I've lived in Rapid City for a little over 3 years. And a few things just really bother me. As some of you are aware, the Councilwoman Darla Drew Lerdahl made a post on Facebook, quote, "Rush Limbaugh has died, unsung, and best forgotten." Although this is within her First Amendment rights, it reflects negatively on every resident in Rapid City, as well as every woman involved in politics. The majority of Rapid City residents are respectful of the dead and their families, despite political or religious differences. That post has been taken down, but I don't think it should have ever been posted in the first place. This is an example of the lack of decency and class of our councilwomen. Unfortunately, both of them are from the same ward. It's as unprofessional as when Councilwoman Laura Armstrong released unredacted written complaints to the Rapid City Journal without them being presented to the entire council and the mayor first. These complaints were then dismissed by the council, most likely still unread by the mayor or the council. The First Amendment rights of those filing complaints were dismissed. If we do not respect and drain the swamp at these lower levels, how are we ever going to get respect and drain the swamp at the highest levels in this country? And these are just examples of why we do not want home rule. One person will be making the majority of the decisions with little or no discussion with the smaller number of councilmen, much less with the tax-paying citizens. I believe under home rule, the manager does not even have to live in Rapid City. So the policies put in place will not even apply to them. Home rule is not for the good of the citizens. Now, I would also like to give a small prayer. This is not directly against our city council or any other of our smaller groups, but my prayer is, Father, we ask in the name of Jesus that all willful workers of wickedness be removed from positions of power, prominence, and prestige. Open the eyes of those who are being deceived and place people who stand for your righteous cause in the high places of government and influence. My point on this is abortion mainly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Carla Schanzenbach.
Thank you, Mayor and City Councilman. My name is Carla Schanzenbach. I'm in Ward 3. Based on last meeting, I just felt I really needed to get up to speed on the home rule. I was kind of waiting for some information. I have no opinion on it. I don't know a lot about it. I did go out onto the websites to wrote to my council person. Thank you, Mr. Solomon, for answering. And I also got some information from the Magic Box on the home rule website. What I asked was, the purpose of the committee was to review, research, and educate public and seek input. How was public education conducted and input solicited? The process identified a step on the purpose section of the presentation to make a recommendation to the mayor and council as to whether home rule should be pursued before moving forward with the charter development process. Was this done and when? Is it part of any minutes? Were education and input processes documented? Are there articles, videos, etc.? Was there funding for the committee? If so, where can I find the documentation? Are there home rule committee meeting videos or minutes? How can I access them? Is there some time limit driving the process as to the vote soon and why? What drove the process to start? Were there a lot of emails and citizen input desiring a change in the city governance? I did get some answers to that, but there was a lot of lack of understanding about where the citizen input comes in, how it fits into the final product when it comes to vote. I am all in favor of information over speculation, so if possible, to this end, I'd like to request that these items be put on the agenda today to discuss, especially about the process and the desired timing for voters. So I'd like to ask it to be added to the agenda this evening.
Okay, thank you. The council has adopted the agenda, and there won't be any additions to it tonight.
Okay. So,
Who was that? John Roberts?
Do we have an attorney that's a parliamentarian in the group? Because I believe we could ask to have this added. Yes, absolutely. I'd like to make that motion that we added if I can get a second.
Who was the second? Jason Solomon? Okay. And your motion is?
I just want to add a motion that we just have a quick discussion on this.
Okay, one of our members, you want to set a time limit to quick, or?
10 minutes at the most. Just a few questions if the council members want to ask any questions on this. I know I have a couple.
Okay, we have a motion to add then a discussion on home rule to the agenda. And we have a second, so all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Let's add that then. Let's add it right after the consent items, so 29A. At least it lets some of the folks in the audience get their business taken care of before we do that. Is that satisfactory? Okay?
thank you very much.
Yep. And then next speaker is Jordan Mason.
Mayor, Council, I'm almost at a loss for words. First off, thank you for making a motion to amend the agenda so we can actually start to hear what's going on. Obviously, I've gotten a lot of different emails and things back and forth, and that's kind of been my complaint to you this whole time. So I'm very, very excited to see this brought out to the open, publicly discussed. I think that's very important for, frankly, any democratic republic such as we have. But I've gotten a lot of complaints about saying that I need to trust the process, and I just want to make some clarifications here publicly tonight that is part of my complaint. You know, if you look at the history of Rapid City, specifically dealing with home rule, we were actually the first city in the state to reject home rule. And there's actually a really interesting USD publication from the University of South Dakota in 1965 called Public Relations that documented the two number one reasons were obviously they were concerned about the consolidation of municipal power, but also new municipal taxes. And we rejected it, well over 65% voted that down. But more importantly, in 1989, Mayor Keith Carlisle had kind of a revolutionary idea of getting not only the city council, but the school board and the county under one form of government to streamline its processes, which I still find to be a very fascinating idea. But one of the expenses that they spent was $500 from the city council, and that motion was actually made by none other than, at the time, city council president Ed McLaughlin, later to become Mayor McLaughlin, to spend $500 for secretarial services. And the county chipped in $500 as well, for a total of $1,000, for the sole purpose of keeping meeting minutes. right? This is a statutory authority that is given by the state to the municipality, that is a sovereign power given to you to expend our public funds for the purpose of creating a charter. This is a public body, and obviously I'll make that publicly known tonight just in case that isn't clear to your city attorney. I have filed an open meetings complaint. There is another one that has been filed as well with the Office of Hearing Examiners, given that was confusing last time. Certified mail obviously has some difficulties. But my point being is there is a process, and this should be a public process when you're spending our money publicly, and especially when you're talking about making decisions about our government. And when I say our government, I appreciate, and I am with Dan Seffner here completely. I've been in your shoes. I've literally sat right in that chair where Pat Jones is sitting. And I do know that it's tough. But your job, and I hope we all remember it, is to serve the people. It's not the other way around where the people are supposed to serve you. And so I do look forward to this public discussion, and I pray that you deeply consider the impact of what's going on, and I hope you can bring the public's business out before the public. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us through the general public comment. And now on to non-public hearing items, 1 through 40. And the consent items tonight will be items 1 through 29. So would the council like to pull any of these items? And we'll go to Ron Weifenbach.
Mr. Mayor, this may be out of line, but as I was sitting here, I just had a thought that, I'm not sure, you probably worked with Mr. Okrepke up here on the council, and I just wanted to let people in the audience know Mr. Okrepke was a councilman here. He has since passed last weekend, and I wanted to just express my condolences to his family. And I didn't know some people if they knew that or not. So I appreciate that opportunity to just say that, Mr. Allender. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
All right, thanks for letting us know. Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought this was the time we could pull items from the agenda.
Correct.
Okay, I'd like to pull number 18 and 22 and 23.
Okay, any others we'd like to pull? If not, could I get a motion to approve consent with the exception of 18, 22, and 23? Motion by Armstrong, second by Drew. All in favor of that motion say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18, authorize staff to advertise for Unidale Drive reconstruction for $1,760,000. We'll go to Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor, and I see that Public Works Director Dale Tech has gone to the microphone, and I just wanted to say that this is a reconstruction, well, I guess Dale will explain it, but it's in Ward 3, and it is badly needed improvement on that, and I'd like Dale to explain what the city's going to do there.
Dale Tech.
Thank you, Mayor. This project actually is the third project we've done in this area in about the last 20 years. This development was originally developed outside of city limits. Originally had private wells and septic systems. Approximately 20 years ago, there was a project that was kind of the backbone to extend infrastructure into this area. A portion of Unidale had been reconstructed, included water, sewer. This is the next phase of that, if you will, to extend sewer, water, and to replace the pavement section as it's reached the end of its useful life. One thing that we have to be cognizant of is our source water. So we have a series of deep wells. We have Rapid Creek that supply our drinking water for the city of Rapid City. So from time to time, we do projects to try to extend sewer into these areas that are served by septic systems to get those septics off of, from discharging into the groundwater, just to help ensure that our wells are pristine and that they produce good water. So once again, Unidale will tie into 2 chunks of Wildwood that have been reconstructed. So it's just the natural progression of extending infrastructure out there in that area.
Yeah. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Nordstrom, second by Stroman to approve item 18. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 22, Authorize Mayor and Finance Officer to sign an agreement with Suez Water Technologies and Solutions for membrane module replacement at the Jackson Springs Water Treatment Plant. Total cost $745,000. Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. And this kind of ties in also with item 23. But when we look at the high-quality water that we have in Rapid City and all the work that goes into providing water to our municipality, I just asked Dale to explain what this investment is that he's asking the City Council to approve for these upgrades to the system.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Mr. Weifenbach was on the City Council back in the late 2000s when we approved the construction of the Jackson Springs Water Treatment Plant. That provides the majority of the water to citizens of Rapid City. It is what's called a membrane filtration plant, and so it has these nanofiber membranes that filter the water. Those filters are so fine that it filters bacteria out of the water. When we went into the design construction of the plant, there's planned replacements for this infrastructure. These nanofibers don't last forever, they wear out over time. As one of our charges of our operations folks that operate the plant, they track the performance of the membranes. And we did, I think, a replacement of one of the modules. There's 5 modules in the plant. These 2 items in front of you, items 22 and 23, are to replace the other 4 modules between now and the end of the year. So once again, we want to use the modules that were originally included in the plant to the greatest extent to maximize costs. Certainly you don't want to replace them prematurely. That's just additional cost. You're throwing away capacity. But now is the time. This is a planned replacement, so we're happy to get this in front of you today so we can ensure that we have safe, high-quality drinking water for the next 8 to 10 years.
Motion to approve on, was that Pat Jones? Approval. Let's take them separately so I can read the other one in. And who is the second? Ron Weifenbach? Okay. All right. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to make the motion, but good, everybody else did, so it's good to hear. So if I may ask a question for Mr. Tech?
Yes.
Mr. Tech, Mr. Kuhn gave us a good explanation of the production of my concern, the production of the water treatment plant and the replacement of that. So my concern, and I believe he did a good job of explaining or putting my mind at ease about my concern for the total production of these, the wells included into my concern, and as well as these two items that we have to deal with, the membrane. So would you pass on to Mr. Kuhn with the explanation of that the process and how the timing works and everything that's going to be coming into play on, because we don't want to lose anything. So that's my comment in just sharing that with Mr. Kuhn.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alderman Nordstrom. Once again, we want to ensure that we have capacity to serve our customers, and with planned improvements that we have, both this item and we had some other items on the agenda for some well improvements, we're going to ensure that we have a strong, viable water system.
And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Bill Evans?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Mr. Tech for giving me the tour of that place when I first went on the council a year and a half ago, because anybody that has not seen it, you should go, because you're going to be very impressed, because it is an absolutely spectacular facility and it is immaculately maintained, and it should be a great source of pride to everybody in the city. And for those media people that are here, I notice we don't have a room full of them like we sometimes do. Maybe a good project might be to take a time and feature all the things the city's doing so well for once, and let our people out there see the great things the city's doing, and that might be a good way of healing some of these points of division we have all the time. Because anybody that sees that is going to say, wow, that is money being perfectly spent in a wonderful way. So I just want to thank you guys for doing that. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval on item 22. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 23, to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign an agreement with Suez Water Technologies and Solutions for a membrane module replacement for the Jackson Springs Water Treatment Plant. Total cost $751,564. Motion to approval by Jones, second by Lehman. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and that takes us through our consent calendar. Now, item 29A, home rule discussion. John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of questions that a lot of citizens have been asking me, or people that I run into on the street ask me, and I was wondering who would even answer them. Who would I talk to?
It depends on the question. Go ahead and...
So one of the questions that I get quite often is, what exactly did the Home Rule Task Force do?
I can answer that. They will, and they'll answer that for you in more detail when they come to present. But they assembled. We had our first meeting back in March or sometime in person. That was the only in-person meeting we had. They met, they developed a strategy for investigating home rule. They divided up into two committees, and they did outreach with other cities. They had guest speakers who were officials in other parts of South Dakota that had been a part of the home rule process in other cities. They had legal overview, and they interviewed people to learn more about home rule. They also researched state law and also considered the option of a city manager. And now at this point, and that went on for I think 18 or so meetings that occurred all on Zoom. And then now they're at the point of preparing a presentation for City Council. I got in an email chain today about some of that as well. I saw them talking about the components of the presentation and so on. In the meantime, some of the members have been invited to local Rotary groups or other service clubs to give an overview, and they have done that. Today, the purpose for that email chain was to talk about an upcoming debate or counterpoint between one of the committee members and Jordan Mason. That's going to be held, I don't know where and when.
Republican Central Committee meeting, May 13th.
May 13th, Republican Central Committee meeting, and you know the location?
Yeah, right off here at Kansas City Street at the Republican headquarters.
Oh, Republican headquarters on Kansas City.
So I think there's a miscommunication out in the public then, because a lot of people believe that this task force was just going to bring forward a recommendation to either go forward or not go forward with home rule. So to me, it sounds like, I'm guessing they're going forward if there's a debate on this.
No. No. What they're doing is planning a presentation for City Council where they'll talk to you about their experience on the committee, what they went through, the question you just asked, and then they'll inform you as to what their recommendation is. And at that point, then they will start with public education. We fully planned on having in-person meetings throughout the whole time. And many of the committee members couldn't make an in-person meeting, so that was all done virtually. So although there was a plan on how we would do it last fall, the reality of it is we did all these on Zoom.
And I think another question that I get is, again, Carla brought this up, is how do people get involved with public comment? They just don't until it either comes forward or doesn't come forward. And then at that point, I guess, do the people have input on what, the home rule charter is going to be, or who's going to write the home rule? Can I ask? She's raising her hand. Can I?
You can ask.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that on the message that I got back from the people on the website for Home Rule, they said they were going to be doing a presentation in March to the council, but they also said they had a charter that they were going to present. So that was kind of my confusion based on that information. I know they were going to go forward with input, but you kind of already have a charter. So that was part of my confusion on the process. So
yeah, they do have a draft charter. That's part of what led their work as a committee. They used a document on preparing a home rule charter to help guide them through their committee process. But when they come to present, there won't be any ask of the city council at that time.
So, again, I think there was a lot of confusion because a lot of people just thought this committee was bringing it forward for a yes or a no, and if they're bringing forward a charter, they're bringing forward a charter with a yes or a no. Correct? Or to go forward with the charter?
No, no, they're not going to ask you anything when they come to present because of the backward agenda because of the pandemic, how they did the committee work first and now they're going to go out in public after your presentation. This committee just wants the city council to have the presentation first before other people do, and they're not ready to give it. They're not ready to give it yet. So whether they have a draft charter or not, they're not going to be asking any questions of the council. At that point, I imagine, and if it sounds like I don't know what's going on here with the committee, there's a method to that. And as the mayor, if I become a member of a committee, if I sit in on all the committee meetings, and if they get any indication from me that I seek a certain result, I'm worried that that will help sway the committee in one direction or the other. So what's important here is that this is a 18-member citizen committee, people chosen from every ward in Rapid City, and people whose names we sent to the city council members of those wards to have pick members. And it didn't go as according to plan because of the meeting issue. So they're going to present to you, and then they will go out as the citizen committee and say, here's what we believe. And the council will have opportunity to interact at that time and attend public sessions, start having opinions about what you'd like to see. But I would anticipate down the road that this committee will come back here asking you to approve something, some version of what they have right now. And I think part of the public interaction piece is that they only know what they know because they've spent these several meetings together as a committee and in their small networking groups. So when they learn more from the public input, when they learn more from council comments and interaction, that may end up shaping their product, but I believe it's inevitable that they'll come back here and ask you to approve something, and when I say approve, they'll be asking you to put it on a ballot.
I think that's all the questions I have. Hopefully some other council members do too. Thank you.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to direct this to you, I guess. I will say I always think it's great when the citizens get involved and have a committee and look at this. So obviously, we do appreciate them taking the time to do that. And I'm coming in halfway through this process. This began before I was on council. Obviously, it's the timeline I guess I'm curious about. I get conflicting data that the time it takes to present from the committee, and is this committee the official committee? Is it an advisory committee that's doing the pre-work prior to the recommendation? We get a lot of conflicting data on that it's supposed to be presented within a 12-month time frame and those sorts of things. And I've asked you this prior to this meeting, so this isn't a surprise, but I think I want to give you an opportunity to clarify for the council and the public the timeline, the nature of this group, the next steps, how that can play out just as clearly. I think you did try to email to us, but that will be very helpful for all of us.
Sure. I believe the official appointment of this committee was in May, perhaps, of 2020. That might have been when it came to the council agenda. They were appointed for up to a year. So I literally read on an email chain today that they're still a committee and that their appointment is until May. And so anyway, the question about the 12 months from the time the process is initiated, this is a question I had initially as well. And so I started making inquiries. We inquired with the city attorney's office. And I also inquired with the city attorney of, Watertown, Roby. And then others involved in the process across the state. And this is the way it's explained to me. Oh, and one of the committee members, Linda Lee Viken, was a former legislator who went back on this statute to read the legislative notes to clarify the intent of that law. And so here's how it's been explained to me since, that there's two ways a home rule question gets before the citizens. One is coming through the city council and having the city council put that on a ballot. The second way is for the citizens to initiate an election on home rule. And when that happens, when the citizens initiate it, and that's the word initiate is used in this statute, it means that the government can't sit on their hands. They have to produce an election within 12 months. But there's been no citizen initiation. This has been from a proactive committee put together by me with the council's authorization. And so this committee has no timeline. They want to present to the council. They don't want to do so prematurely, but I'm of the opinion that they could take another year or two if they chose to develop it how they see fit. I don't believe that's the case. They want to be done with this in a responsible manner, and so they'll be coming forward.
Okay. And it's, as council members, I get asked questions about this all the time. I don't know everything that's going to be presented, so I can only give general opinions about big topics, but I don't know the intricacies of what's presented. So I do look forward to hearing all of the details so I can give an honest take about what's next. But I think that process and timeline has been one of the more confusing aspects just because of the conflicting data. So I appreciate you sharing that. I know we had a 10-minute time limit on this. I, of course, could ask other questions, but I'll let other council members get theirs in. Thanks.
Well, we're past 10 minutes, but if you want to ask a question, go ahead. If the council wants to stop this, let me know. Richie Nordstrom.
You're the rule. You have the chair, and you can make the decision on the time limit. So, real quick, Mayor, I'm looking at the website right now, and the portion up there when I'm reading over is that there's an opportunity for the public to ask questions. And has that been conducted?
Yes, we've answered dozens of questions. I've only been involved in a couple of them because most of them have been handled at other levels. The one that the person was talking about tonight, I think she was waiting for questions to be answered and sent an email around the same time when someone submitted answers from the website. So there may have been a couple of specific questions that weren't addressed from her.
My last question will be, is it fair to say that the committee is still, the colloquial term is called making the sausage? Is that fair to say that the sausage is still getting put together and we haven't got a final product yet to look at?
That's true. They're still working, and as I mentioned, they were discussing the presentation today, and they were trading back and forth versions of a presentation and making critiques to it.
I'm going to yield there, Mayor. Thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just briefly, I was on that committee in the beginning, and I recall what we were tasked to do, and that was to investigate what home rule is, investigate what home rule isn't, and then parallel to that was their interest in having a city manager for the city of Rapid City, and the committee was to investigate all of those things, and then when they were ready to come forward and present to the city council their findings, and then do public education sessions like was done for the Civic Center and other things, for people to really have an opportunity to learn what was discovered and ask good questions. Questions like you did, ma'am, and I thank you for that. So they can't come forward to present until they're ready. So yeah, I would firmly believe they're still making sausage, because the timeline that we were given when I was on it was it would be a year from their inception, most likely, before they presented. So that's what we were tasked to do. We were also charged to have an open opinion about it. Anyone who was on the committee, if they already had their mind made up, they were asked to either not be on the committee anymore or unmake up their mind, so everyone could have an open opinion about it. And I believe that was the case. It's an exceptionally talented committee, and I think, I know I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say. But that is the process that they are doing. In the time that I was on it, we listened to various council people from around the state, people who were in favor of it, of home rule, people who were very much against home rule, different types of city managers, pro and con, and the group just kept gathering information, trying to learn as much as they could about it in order to present to the council when the time is right, so we could know what was going on and they could go forward and educate the citizens. I'm a bit baffled at the accusations that it's trying to be kept secret and covert, because they have a job to do. They are tasked to come forward. If they were to come forward and only have completed 50% of their work, they'd take a whooping because they weren't ready to come forward. So it's important that they not present until they're ready and they have the information ready and can try to anticipate everything that we want to know. So I'm very confident that that committee, when the time comes, is going to present and they're going to give us the information. They're not going to tell us what to do. They're going to give us information. That's what they were tasked to do. And then it'll go to the community, and hopefully people will attend the meetings and learn about it so they can give us feedback and the process can work. But I say that without hesitation that was the role of it in the beginning, and I know and confident that that's what's going on right now. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
Thank you. As you know, from the very beginning, when we voted on this, I was a little curious as to how the Home Rule Committee, in its initial inception that I remember voting from the dais on, made really no mention of city manager form, unless I'm mistaken. And then when the committee was formed immediately after that, it was divided into two. So I was always a little concerned about that. I'm not really worried about it because it doesn't mean anything is going to happen. But there's been a lot of misinformation that's been going on in that, out there, and it's mainly because we have a void. I don't like the process, so I disagree a little bit with Mr. Jones, who I normally agree with a lot. But I think that there's no reason why periodic updates as to progress, why we couldn't be getting some information from time to time so we know what the process is, could be handed out. So that void that gets filled with something, and right now it's filled with a ton of misinformation, can't be filled with some facts. All right, now a couple facts here. And I'll ask this to Mr. Mayor because I think he knows better than anybody else. Does home rule require a city manager form of government?
No.
That's been one of the biggest points of contention, because I would say 80% of the people believe that is so. Does the city manager or does the change to home rule require a change in the number of council people, a change in the size of the council, any of that business?
All of that is not a characteristic of home rule in itself.
Right.
One
And
of the-
so all these have been linked together.
Well, the benefit of home rule, or the curse maybe, according to some, is that you can configure your own preferences and priorities in the number of council members or how your city is managed or things of that nature. So none of it is inherent to the home rule designation.
And yet, so much of the dialogue that's out there among the citizenry makes that seem like that's the case. Now, I have a question for Mr. Mason, if you would be willing to get up there. You have a video that's circulating out there, correct? That talks about home rule a little bit?
Couple. There's been some that I've found out after the fact, so.
A lot of those things that are maybe not quite so accurate are in that video, and that concerns me because I want things to be fair and open, but I don't believe that when we spread some things and incite people, that's productive. So I'm just hoping that until we get the facts and actually get the information out there, a lot of the dialogue that's discussing things that don't exist maybe stops until we have something to work with. That sounds to me to be fair and reasonable. So maybe everybody could back off until we get the information, and then we'll talk about it. But let's know what we're talking about before we get everybody all in a Twitter pated and run around like chicks with their heads off. The sky is not falling, so there's no reason to act like it is. So that would be my request of a lot of people, you included.
Okay.
And we've had some very civilized dialogue over the months. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
And so I would just ask for that kind of temperance a little bit till we actually know what is happening, so we can discuss it objectively.
Sure.
All right.
If I may actually respond. I do appreciate that. I have gotten some feedback on some of the comments about trying to cut the council down in half. That was actually a comment, and if you'd like the original source, that was made as a possibility by Mayor Allender in a Rapid City Journal article, specifically in the reference to the city manager. That was also taken from a comment from the Mayor Allender, also in some of his comments. So you're right. I really appreciate what you're saying, because without some sort of input, right, I'm going to make assumptions based on what has actually been said, and those are the only things that we do have to operate on. So I do agree with you that I think it would be much better to actually have the full document, the full idea of what's being proposed here laid on the table and publicly discussed. So thank you.
And I appreciate that, and I think we'd all be better if we would just wait until we actually know what we're talking about before we start opposing or being in favor of anything. Thank you.
Last question, Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, I appreciate Mr. Evans' point of view, but he kind of contradicted himself a little bit in the fact that I agree with you. I'm going to read you guys something. The mission of the Rapid City Council is to provide a cost-effective public administration that ensures public trust, provides an open forum, fosters a climate of free enterprise for all people, enhances quality of life. That's our mission. So when you're making sausage and you're deciding on what kind of sausage you're going to make when you already have the sausage in front of you, I think you got an issue. I mean, I came in on this in the second thing. Right? No, I agree with a lot of what you said, Mr. Evans, or Alderman Evans, and the fact of the matter is some of this is perpetrated by the way we conducted ourselves in this thing, and I've had this conversation with the mayor. This has basically been in the dark a lot, and that's what perpetrates this type of conversation. This is their business, the people's business. If the people would have initiated home rule for some reason, if they feel that our government's broken versus our government not just doing what they want, they could have initiated home rule. So sure, they're going to be skeptical. Of course they're going to be skeptical. Okay? When I read back and looked at what was proposed by this council, what was proposed by the council was to come up with a recommendation. whether home rule, here's the good and bad and the ugly. You guys make a decision. Because in the end, as we all know as council people, hopefully that's what we're going to do anyway. Because I'm telling you what, I appreciate the hard work that they've put in, but if you start out with the sausage and you already know what kind you're going to make, and then you go and you make it, it's different than deciding through the process if this sausage makes sense or not. We've already got people on the Home Rule Committee, they're going to go debate the Home Rule Charter, or whatever it is. The whole thing would never started out with a charter. It started out with, is this a good thing for the citizens of Rapid City? It wasn't initiated by the people. It's the first I've campaigned a lot, and I've never heard anybody say, hey, why don't you guys get home rule? So I'm going to leave it at that because, like Mr. Evans said, there's a lot of information I haven't seen. I've been unavailable to see it. It's not there. We haven't fostered this in an open public forum. That, to me, therein lies an issue that we need to resolve. And we continue to go down that road. We continue to cut people off. We continue to not listen to the people that come here to speak to us. We continue to second guess what they have to say when they're keeping us in check. That's their job. That's the people's job. And I couldn't agree with you more, Alderman Evans, in the fact that if it was more open and transparent along the line, if it was, as Mr. Jones had discussed in the very beginning, we'd have a great discussion when it comes forward. I'm hoping that's what happens. But if they come up here and bring me a charter and say, yeah, this is what we recommend, I'm going to have a real issue with that. I think the process has been flawed, and it's unfortunately the water's been tainted. We can blame it on whatever we want. We've sure had a lot of open meetings with COVID either way. I mean, I've zoomed in on some library meetings. I've zoomed in on council meetings. I've zoomed in on a lot of meetings. The whole thing is making it open. We just had this discussion with the Journal about open meetings and all these types of things. I appreciate, I will keep an open mind coming forward, but I do see some of the water's tainted, and it goes on both. But when you're trying to guess, because you don't know what it is, they have no alternative but to guess and to ask us questions. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Okay, that'll bring an end to that discussion. And then we'll now move on to the, back to the agenda. Starting with non-consent items 30 through 40. We'll open public comment on items 30 through 40, and I have one speaker request from Kyle Trelor on item 32.
Kyle Trelor with Dream Design. Next time you have to warn me that you're going to have all this sausage making discussions, and I'll make sure to eat supper before I come to this meeting. Anyways, I do want to also take just a quick second here to kind of piggyback. We had the the planning staff that came through, and they really do an amazing job. You have Kurt, you have Vicky. That's the face of who you see when you come into the city. They're knowledgeable. They're able to answer questions. They're great to work with. That with Public Works to back them up on the more technical aspects, it is a really good group, and I just want to applaud them for that too. I don't think I say that enough, but you guys do an amazing job. I do want to just take a couple minutes here. We have item 32, which is a rezone in the Buffalo Crossing South subdivision. And I'd like to request that the proposed rezone be approved at tonight's meeting. Just to kind of orientate everybody, this is on the south end of the Buffalo Crossing subdivision. We have Addison Avenue. All right, let's see. We have Addison Avenue that's running in this direction. This currently extends all the way to Highway 16 where it connects through. We have Healing Way, which is a main collector street that runs north-south through this area. This area that's shaded in green, that's the area of the proposed rezone that we're discussing here today. You can see just behind it and on the other side of Healing Way, the existing single-family residential that we've already constructed in this area. So this is just a secondary view with kind of a little more zoomed out to get the whole overall lay of the land here. Here you have Healing Way. Here's the area of the proposed rezone right here. You can see the existing commercial. We have the Holiday, we have the Holiday Inn. We've got the monument, the big monument facility here. We also have all of our residential. You've got some really amazing townhomes and some really great single family here. So this proposed rezone is coming to you in conjunction with a preliminary subdivision plan that's also on this meeting agenda, which is to create 13 single-family lots. So the change from office commercial to MDR is to facilitate the single-family lots, which are not currently allowed in office commercial. When we started this project and we did our original rezonings for this, that was allowable. So as part of the master plan that we envisioned, this is not outside of what we originally had thought. But because we now are looking at these single-family lots, this is the reason that's necessitating this rezone. These lots are 50-foot wide, so they're a different size and a different type than we have currently existing at Buffalo Crossing. And they're going to have homes on them that we expect to start at about $250,000. If this moves forward, we fully expect to have this under construction this spring, and we'll have these homes available this year, which is one of the major drivers in this. And even as we gathered the public comment from the neighborhood, which strongly supports this change in rezone, there's just an overall lack of single-family homes, especially in this area. One of the comments that's been presented in the staff report is that we want to have that diversity of housing, especially in this area, and that these single-family lots maybe don't necessarily fit into that, and that we'd like to see something as far as the apartments or multifamily. But in this case, we have apartments just to the north of us across Catron Boulevard. We have apartments to the south of us. We've got apartments just to the northwest of us. We have that large apartment presence in this area. We don't have that same presence with the single-family residential. Also, just as a kind of to continue to back this up, or at least provide some additional information here. This is an exhibit here that I received from the DOT earlier this last week, where they're holding their public meetings for their proposed changes to the Highway 16 Catron Boulevard intersection. This is their preferred option. This is what they expect to move forward with, which includes an overpass and new reconstruction through here. But what's important is that the current plan that they'd like to move forward with here is to close this Addison Avenue and disconnect that from Highway 16. That fundamentally changes this commercial value of this area, and then tends to lead itself to this residential development and an extension of this neighborhood. This is not a case where this would be like a spot zoning type deal. We're directly adjacent to existing residential, and this would just be a natural extension of that neighborhood. Just kind of lastly, I just want to point out that we have received many comments from this neighborhood in support of this rezone. It's not very often that I get to come in front of you with support for a rezone like this, where we are adding single family and not proposing to put an apartment complex on this property. This is an entrance corridor. We have beautiful views of the Black Hills, and so all of the things that we're used to seeing on this corridor, with blocking view sheds and multiple stories of construction, we don't have with this. And so that's all part of this rezone request that I'm asking you guys to consider tonight. So thank you for listening to me, and if you have any questions, I'll be available. Thank you.
Okay, and that'll bring an end to the public comment period, and we'll start with ordinances and item number 30. Second reading of ordinance 6471, an ordinance repealing chapter 1.08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code relating to wards and precincts and adopting a new revised chapter 1.08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion approved by Nordstrom and a second by Lehman. And go to Pat Jones.
Thank you very much. This is in Ward 1, and I asked a question about will this impact any voters or any voting areas, and the answer was no, it doesn't impact any of that, so it's an easy change to make without impacting any voters in Ward 1. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and second on the floor. All in favor of approval of item 30, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 31, second reading of ordinance 6477, an ordinance to remove the requirement that property owners open city utility accounts by amending provisions in Chapter 13.08 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion approved, Lehman, second by Drew. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seems pretty close. We might want to have to roll call on that one. Item number 32, first reading ordinance 6473, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Buffalo East LLC for a rezoning request from office commercial district to medium density residential district for property generally described as being located at 7223 Healing Way. Motion to approve by Jones. Motion to approve item 32. Approve the second by Drew, and we'll go to Bill Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Fisher, are you fully aware of the questions regarding this rezoning? Could you come forward and maybe see why you are recommending that this be denied? And has the consideration of that closure of the access road up there by the Spine Center or whatever it is, has that been considered in this denial? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
So in looking at this rezone and applying it to the city's comprehensive plan, it shows that Healing Way, a collector street, is the divider between the residential to the east and the commercial to the west, indicating from the state that Addison may at some point be closed was a part of what was considered. Looking at what makes for good planning to enforce those lines of division, to ensure that we've got that separation, and in particular that we've got an alternate use in the area that they are proposing to rezone to create that buffer between single family and commercial, was the thought process behind why we came forward with a recommendation to Planning Commission. And if I may just say, it was difficult for staff. We understand that there is a need right now for single-family lots in the city. We understand that there are single-family lots right across the street. And noting that, when we brought it before the Planning Commission, they wanted to preserve the integrity of the comprehensive plan. So even though it was a 5-4 vote, the majority did fall on the side of let's keep the comprehensive plan in place.
One more question. Was there ever a consideration of some other sort of housing there, a higher density one and or townhomes or something like that rather than single family homes? I find a 50-foot wide lot to be pretty narrow. I think that's 48 feet from that wall to that one. So
the current zoning would allow for apartments. I believe you heard Kyle say that there's an abundance of apartments that are coming to the area, so they didn't feel that met their market needs. The current zoning would not allow for townhomes or single-family homes.
Okay, Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could ask a couple of questions of Mr. Treloar, please.
Yes.
And if you could, Kyle, while you're coming up, get ready to put those maps up there again for me, please. Mayor, have you got a motion on the floor yet?
Yes, there's a motion for approval.
Thank you. Kyle, would you put up that one map up there again? and you've got one up there that has a little bit wider view of this area. It shows a map. I believe it's what the infrastructure changes will be to Highway 16.
Oh, the Highway 16 one?
Yeah.
Okay.
My question, Kyle, is do we have a second access to this facility or to this area? Yeah, getting down to that residential area and getting out of there, is that second access going south or planned to go south?
Right now, Healing Way is planned to continue to the south. I've actually got a little bit of a different exhibit here that'll show this future corridor.
I just want to ensure that we've got a second access to this area.
Write this with the world for you. So here you can see the proposed kind of overall region, and this is from the DOT, right? This is part of their presentation, but
yes,
you can see that Healing Way continues and runs all the way to the south to Moon Meadows Drive, where there's the Moon Meadows Apartments. The next or the future connection here is what they call this section line road, which will tie into Highway 16 at a safe distance from that proposed intersection.
Very good. Very good. Thanks, Kyle. Or Mr. Turler, thanks you very much. And then the secondary issue that's been brought up is the apartment complexes. I'm fully supportive of this project going with low-density residential, so in other words, housing. But I think we are headed for, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that I see a concern that's on the horizon with apartments getting built within the city of Rapid City. And you may not be able to answer me, but I see a concern in that area because we're getting a lot of objections to building apartments next to certain properties. And so I just wanted to raise that as concern that I hope we're not headed down that road. And you mentioned something about we see a market coming that will allow more multifamily, medium-density residential?
So in this one particular case, what we could do right now is put apartments on this parcel. That would be allowable under the current zoning code.
Yep.
And so we're actually looking to kind of lower that density a little bit. We're still trying to maximize the density by putting in the narrower lots, those 50-foot wide lots, so which is a different housing type than we have just on either Addison or Bristol Court or any of the other residential streets that we have in this subdivision. There is, the apartments and the growth of Rapid City. Rapid City is growing incredibly right now, and so there's needs for all different types of housing. And there's no doubt that we do get pushback in a lot of cases when we do come in with apartments in next to single family or in other areas. That's a common thing that we see amongst the public, and so there's just some education and understanding that that's not all bad, that is part of a healthy developing city, that type of housing is needed. One other kind of point on this one particularly too, and this is a lot of times brought about from what exactly you're saying. In this case, we have medical uses that are right next to us, already built out. You don't have the same concerns that, let's say, you have somebody that comes in and builds a house, and then somebody comes in and builds, a giant commercial facility next to them. We're already constructed out in this case, so you don't have that same concern that a lot of times you'll see when you're talking and having that apartment complex. Well, I never knew that this was going to happen, or I never knew that they were going to build this. In this case, the commercial is built out next to this property, so that's not a detriment to this project.
Thank you, Mr. Turler. Well said. I appreciate that. I yield.
Thank you.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my question would be for Kyle, and put up that one of those pictures he had up, the overview, as I had a question about the lot that was to the north. I could probably support this, but I want to caution the council that when we do this, that we need to be prepared for a couple things here in the future. And that's something that we always look forward. I mean, when we put that Walmart over there on South, yep, if you look at the lot there, you're taking half of that lot, is that correct?
We are, so this lot itself is a 5-acre lot. There is about half of it that's a detention facility, so.
But what is that zone? That's my concern right there, because if you put the single-family homes in there, and the rest of that is zoned for something that would allow something that's not a buffered style, I mean, this is where you get into trouble when you're planning for the city and the council makes these arbitrary decisions like this. Is like, we did this over at Walmart on the south side, and those people that put those houses up in that vacant lot, and then all of a sudden, they're building big, things that aren't really buffered, but the city changed the zoning. So I think that might be a concern here, Kyle.
So just to kind of help with that concern, that area, that green space, that is an actual detention pond that was built for
Okay,
this.
so it cannot be.
So it cannot be
Okay,
built on.
that was my biggest concern right there, because if that lot could be built on to have a big, like a gas station or anything that could disrupt that neighborhood.
No,
I can support that then, knowing that they can't, that's a regional detention pond, or?
It's designed
Just
for
for-
this subdivision.
For that subdivision, okay, so it'll never be built on then, so.
Correct.
Well, that'll actually be a good buffer then, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of general comments. When the group from South Valley Road was in, and they were concerned about the housing that was going to go behind them, they said, well, instead of apartments, why can't you put single-family housing, because we need more single-family housing. So I agree with Mr. Treeler, no matter what kind of housing you want to put in a spot, someone's going to be happy, someone's going to be unhappy. It looks like, to me, it's a natural fit up there to have more single-family housing. And the vote that the planning group made that we were told just a few minutes ago by Vicki was a 5-4 vote, and that they struggled with, I think that underscores exactly where we're at. We understand that there's a need for this, and we struggle with where to put it and how to do it. And I have great respect for the work that they did, because I'm sure that was tough, and the fact that it's 5-4 very much underscores that. But another important point, and Mr. Treeler touched on it, if people choose to buy a lot and build there, they know who their neighbors are right now. They know that the Monument facility is there. And they know that the Holiday convenience store is there. And so if they don't want that as their neighbors, if they don't want to drive that every day coming and going to wherever they're going, then they don't have to build there. So there's not going to be near the surprises that could come up in another area. So for those reasons, I support the project because of the need of single-family homes, especially in that price range, and I think it would be a nice fit for that development up there. Thank you.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Vicki to come to the microphone?
Yes.
Vicki, following up with what Alderman Jones said, you said it was a close call, both for your advice to the Planning Commission, and their vote was 5-4, and it was based on a belief that they wanted to remain true to the long-range plan or the comprehensive plan. What's the biggest downside that you could foresee if we approved this and we're not consistent with the long-range plan?
So the property directly to the west is zoned general commercial. This property is office commercial. Right now, we do have medical buildings on that property. If it should redeveloped, or if the vacant commercial property on the south side of Addison were to come forward with the use that would be more in nature of general commercial, like a retail outlet or a restaurant, then it could impact these properties as well. If I may note one thing, we sometimes come here and we get on a soapbox. And that's when we really take a position that we are adamant that it be followed, like rezoning to heavy industrial along the interstate. You're probably going to see that your professional planners have a real issue with that. In this case, even though it doesn't abide by the components of the comprehensive plan, we understand the arguments that Mr. Treloar is making, and we understand the position that we've put you in this evening. If this were property adjacent to Highway 16, also known as Mount Rushmore Road, you would see me standing on a soapbox.
Thank you. I think with that explanation, I can approve this, and I'll yield.
Darla Drew.
Thank you very much. I am leaning towards approving this as well. And one of the main reasons is because when we have looked at this property before, property in that area before, we get an awful lot of resistance because you're going to block my view, that big, that you're going to have a two-story restaurant there that's going to just ruin this entire property and the look of it. I mean, we have had people that have been very vehement about what they want to see developed in this area because it does have a great vista. So I would support the single-family dwellings rather than going on with the business, although it's part of the comprehensive plan. I just think that this would be a better use of that land. Thank you. Go ahead. Do you have?
I just wanted to say one thing. I have Fletcher Laycock here with me this evening, and he is my senior planner that did this review. He put a lot of energy into trying to call forward what's in our future land use plan and comprehensive plan, and why our professional planning staff took the position that they did. He did an excellent job at his presentation to Planning Commission. Having said that, we knew going in here tonight that we had put you folks in a tough position, knowing the logistics of where this property was, the unique nature around it, and the fact that we have such a high demand right now for single-family homes.
Yeah, and it's a great area. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
One more quick question for Ms. Fisher. Obviously, you brought up a concern about that eventually ending up a spot-zoned island of single-family homes surrounded by other uses. If you just had your druthers as a professional experienced planner, what would be your preferred housing setup that went in there? I mean, if you could, utopian make a choice.
Sure. If we had our druthers, we'd like to see some 4-unit apartment units, maybe 6, 7, 8 of those units, 2-story highest, if we had our druthers.
And the logic behind that is it makes a scale transition from the commercial down to the single family across the street. And as a person who's also got some 30 hours in urban planning, I got to tell you, that's a logical decision to me, and I'm really happy you said that. Thank you.
Okay, item 32, we have a motion on the floor for approval. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 33, first reading ordinance 6474, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Capital 4 LLC for a rezoning request from General Agricultural District to Medium Density Residential District for property generally described as being located south of North Valley Drive. Motion to approve by Drew and a second by Stroman. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 34, first reading of ordinance 6475, an ordinance to create a platting process to facilitate the transfer of certain unplatted property by adding section 16.08.105 to the Rapid City Municipal Code. We'll go to Pat Jones.
I'd like to move approval and keep the floor if I get a second.
Second by John Roberts.
Thank you. I just want to say this is brilliant. This is so great to be adding something like this. It's going to help clean things up and allow things to move forward. So Vicki and anyone else that was involved in that, thank you. This is great to add. Done.
Okay, a motion for approval of item 34. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 35, first reading of ordinance 6476, an ordinance to require platted lots in the medium and high-density residential districts abut a public street for a distance of not less than 25 feet by amending subsection 17.12.050E of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion approved by Drew and a second by Jones. All in favor of approval of item 35, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 36, first reading ordinance 6480, an ordinance to clarify provisions related to the Rapid City Regional Airport Board and to extend its membership by amending provisions in chapter 2.72 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion for approval by Drew, second by Armstrong. We'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to make a know if it's a substitute motion or a friendly amendment, but that the 7-member board be residents of Rapid City only as it was originally written, and not include members from outside of our city limits. If I can get a second.
I have a motion on the floor to amend to approval of a 7-member city resident only board, seconded by John Roberts.
And if I can keep the floor.
Yep. Go ahead.
This is a discussion we had at working session. I also had a great discussion with our airport director. Appreciated that. My main objection is the city is the one who initially invested in the airport. Siri's trying to. I did not say Siri. But the city initially invested in the airport. The city invested in the infrastructure, including the water that goes out that way. The city, as the entity, is what launched it. Now the airport operations is up and running, but we also pay benefits and help obviously offset the costs on that. So bringing in other taxing entities, I think if they have a financial stake in it, obviously they should have representation on that board. But without that stake, I'm not sure if it's appropriate that they would have a voice on how we run the airport, unless we change the authority, or unless the jurisdiction is split up a little bit differently. And if I could Patrick, would you mind addressing whether that would be an issue for you and your team? I know one issue is it limits our recruiting pool for board members. Obviously, there's some great people outside of city limits. But can you address that, and if that would create any challenges for you and your team?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Alderman Solomon, I guess, we brought this forward in an effort to look at the diversification of the board in terms of giving us the ability to continue to work with those folks that are outside of the city of Rapid City and the limits that are there. We feel that we are very well supported when it does come to that area. In terms of the financing piece, as I've had in conversations with others on this, it kind of comes between the chicken and the egg. Mm-hmm. Do you first look at diversifying when there's a need to expand the tax base, or is there a need to develop the relationships and work through it ahead of time, gain the support within the potential of expanding the tax base? So, when I do look at the stability of the board, I think a 7-member board is a stable form of government for us, or stable form of board for us, I should say. We did work towards that in the 5-year terms on the board members back probably 4 years ago to make sure that we've got the continuity of operation, and I think that was a big improvement. Mm-hmm. So I guess the goal, yes, it would meet the needs. Does it meet the intent of the goal on this? I would say the answer to that is meet the need, yes. Meet the intent of the goal, no.
Okay, and I can understand. I think going to 7 members is very helpful. Obviously, I think that's a great thing. And of course, we want to have great relationships with the counties and jurisdictions around us. I just wonder if it sets a precedent for any other committees or boards that we have committee and board members outside of the city limits impacting city business. Because if we do it here, how do we not do it elsewhere? And that would be, and maybe I'm missing something, but that'd be my one concern. I yield. Thank you. Thanks, Patrick.
Bill Evans.
I'm going to vote against this tonight, and I'm going to vote against it for these reasons. The business that Mr. Solomon just brought up, I think, is legitimate. Mr. Nordstrom had proposed an alternative that I could agree with. I believe that we need the input of the surrounding areas, but perhaps them coming onto the board in a non-voting capacity, and Mr. Nordstrom suggested a few days ago, that might solve the problem of the discrepancy between taxation without representation and representation without taxation, the other end of it. So in that respect, I think the ordinance is flawed, and the changes wouldn't address that. It'd be somewhat like having somebody come in and say they should be on the city council because they come into Rapid City and pay the bed and breakfast tax or whatever, or the Vision Fund tax, and so they should have the right to vote on that. Well, you know, it's the same exact logic, so I don't agree with that. The other thing is the stipulation that it be our local firefighters that are in there. I spent about 5 or 6 hours today studying other communities. The nearest community I find that has got, and I may be incorrect, but I did try and find out, that has a private enterprise doing the fire protection is Des Moines. Maybe you can correct me on that. That's the closest one that I found to us. You know, it's kind of like giving an answer for a question that hasn't been asked. And looking through those ordinance or those regulations from the FAA, I honestly don't see any concern here. I mean, if a city the size of Los Angeles and New York and so many of the other big cities have got parts of their public fire department that are city-owned covering those things, I guess I don't understand where the problem is. So I will be voting against it tonight simply because I didn't have enough time to learn about this thing. It showed up last Wednesday, and it's kind of like this other thing with the home rule. If this is a big deal, maybe we should have been alerted so I have time to do my homework for a couple weeks before I'm asked to vote on anything. So I would rather than go through the thing we've gone through with the water bills and trying to undo an ordinance that's flawed, I'd rather just not do any ordinance at all until we have one that's worth voting on. Thank you.
Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. Test, okay. May I ask a question to Director Dame?
Yes, please.
Director Dame, do you want 2 extra people on the board? I just want to clarify that.
Madam President, yes, when we looked at this and talked with board members about this and talked about the logic for what was there, we wouldn't have brought this forward if we didn't think it was a good
Okay, I just
good
wanted to
option
clarify that for the record. Thank you.
Yep.
What would, and I defer to you because I've seen the wonderful work that you have done to our regional airport in the last 5 years. I was on the board a few years ago. I commend you. You brought more travelers, more traffic, more routes. I'm just very impressed, and I think I speak for my colleagues as well. You've just done an outstanding job, so I really do defer to you when you bring these things forward. Having 2 additional board members, if they were from out of Rapid City, what could be the benefit of that?
Mr. Mayor, Madam President, I think the thing that we look at the most is, you know, again, we're planning the airport in terms of, you know, what's happening tomorrow is already in the can. You know, we're going through a large master planning process. Within that master planning process, we are involving outside input from other communities as well. As we look at the 15 to 20 year plan of the airport, there's going to be some big decisions that are going to be in that realm. There's going to be some big decisions that allow for, that we have to look at in terms of the main runway. Right now, what I can tell you is Bismarck is in the middle of reconstructing their runway to the cost of $64 million, that of which is funded at 50%. It's eligible at 90% funding. I guess what we kind of look at in this process too is as some of these big decisions come forward, is it fair that Rapid City is the only one who is at the table when we have a regional facility as well?
And if I may, because I only have a limited time, wouldn't you say that people that come to Rapid City, they're just not locked into Rapid City, correct? I mean, they go on to Pier, they go to Sturgis, Belle Fourche. I think of just personally, or all of us, when we have people in town, or visitors in town, do we just leave them here in Rapid, or do we take them to Mount Rushmore? Do we take them up to Sturgis and Deadwood? I see where you're going with this, and I do believe, I mean, you know, my colleagues that are opposed to this, I totally see their point, but I am all about inclusivity, and I think this would be important to bring these two members and at least give them the option of when people are applying for these board positions. You know, if we have two great people from Rapid City, so be it, but at least involve our sister cities and have them at the table for these important discussions that are just ongoing in what we project. So if we can all amend it to involve the board members outside of Rapid City, I would definitely be on board with this. Do you have anything else to add, Director Dame?
Not on that. I guess the one thing I would add is on the fire department piece, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
In terms of the fire department piece of this, we really look at the ordinance piece of it. This doesn't have a lot to do with the fire department itself. If you look at, and Mr. Evans, Councilmember Evans brought up Des Moines being the closest, it's actually Bismarck. But what I would add on to that is you have Fargo has their own fire department for the airport. So does Grand Forks. Sioux Falls has the National Guard. Minot is a city. Williston splits their fire department between the airport and the city. They have people that serve both. So as you can see, there's many different ways to do this. Right now, by ordinance, we're allowed one. So when you get into the issue of looking at the airport's rights and your grant assurances that you sign, when we accept we get about $2.3 to $2.5 million a year, we're not supposed to give up our rights in that. We're supposed to have options available to us within this, whether it's a bid or it's something that our own staff does or something that the city fire department does or a private contractor. The issue is there are other options out there. We only have access to one, and I think you're splitting hairs in the ordinance in giving the FAA the ability to look at that and say you're not meeting your grant assurance. That's our concern. We don't want to see the airport give up our access to funding like that or have to fix something like that in the event we're found in the wrong. And the FAA is the one who gets to make the decision whether or not you meet the intent or you don't.
Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just some general comments here. After Wednesday, I had some questions, and the thing that I was most concerned about is I don't want to see someone else other than the Rapid City Fire Department providing services at the airport. I think the optics of us paying someone to provide those services that may be an out-of-state company or something like that, spending our tax dollars to someone else, I think the optics of that are poor. So I hope it's always the Rapid City Fire Department. On Friday, I had a great discussion with Director Dame and Fire Chief Culverson about this, and thank you very much for that discussion because it was very, very helpful. Rod Pettigrew from the Airport Board, I know he called me, he probably called others, and I have a great amount of respect for Rod, and he said this is what the Airport Board would like to see, and so, you know, we have those boards in place for a reason, and we should honor, you know, what they have to say. The name of the airport is Rapid City Regional Airport. Rapid City Regional Airport. As President Armstrong said, people don't come to our airport just to do Rapid City. They do the Black Hills. When I was on the City Council in Lead many years ago, we were asked to join a group called the Black Hills Council of Local Governments. Well, Pat Jones, City Councilman in Lead, didn't want anything to do with it. Why would we put in our tax dollars from the City of Lead to join some other government group? Well, as I took the time to learn and get educated as to about what that group could do for us, I discovered that anyone who comes to Spearfish likely goes to Deadwood and Lead and all that, exactly like we're talking about right now. So our investment into the Black Hills Council of Local Governments paid great dividends for the City of Lead, and I believe it still does. And so this is a hard one because we want to respect our tax dollars and how we spend them, and that's a very, very important thing in what we do. Alderman Weifenbach a moment ago read what our mission is, and this one This is tough. But thinking about Rapid City Regional Airport and how if we expand our board to adding 2 people from outside, how that could impact us positively in our growth and in how we bring more people in. Those kinds of things, I believe, would be a good thing for us. I support this based on my conversations with Director Dame, with Fire Chief Culverson, with Board Member Rod Pettigrew, and just for those reasons, I believe Rapid City Regional Airport could benefit from bringing in some of our surrounding neighbors to be part of the board. I think there are great people out there. There are great ideas and suggestions yet to be heard. Not that it couldn't be just from people in Rapid City, but there are great ideas out there that we need to hear as we look to the future. Thank you.
As a reminder, motion on the table is to increase the membership on the board to 7, but require that they're all Rapid City residents. We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions for Director Dame, please?
Yes.
Director Dame, hopefully you can follow my logic here, but I'm kind of concerned about this question that came up earlier about taxation without representation. Could you remind us about the tickets that are purchased for an airline ticket? There's a certain fee that stays within Rapid City, am I correct?
So the passenger facility charge, the
Yes.
$4.50 fee, is that what you're referring to?
Correct.
Yes,
And that stays here in Rapid City?
it does.
And that's utilized by people, say, from Wall or Spearfish or Sturgis. So that portion of that tax is also paid by the flying public, that it comes from other municipalities or other areas with other. And then you also put, I shouldn't say you, but the architect of this ordinance put in there something about a counties, a certain region, an area of. Could you give me a short summary of what that region is?
Mr. Mayor, Representative Nordstrom, we looked at a 50-mile ring, and quite frankly, what we did was draw a circle 50 miles from the corporate center of Rapid City and expanded it out in all directions. Based on that, we looked at the coverage on that and then named specific counties that were within this. So, I know a concern was brought up before about what's the limitation in this? Could someone from, Chadron, I think was a city that was brought up, be someone who's involved with this? The answer to that would be no. Essentially this goes Spearfish, Wall, Hot Springs to the south. It's kind of within, if you were to pull that 50-mile ring out there, and then the counties selected that are wholly within that ring.
Thank you, Director. The comment that Alderman Solomon brought up earlier about the suggestion that you would be the only enterprise fund that would be doing something like this. And I did just a little bit of quick research on it, and the Civic Center does not have any board members from outside the city of Rapid City. The library is the same way. And so we do regional or even county-wide support from, say, for example, the library. And that's another entity, and people from outside of Rapid City use that facility. So I'm struggling with this taxation without representation. So, and I don't know if that leads us down the road of what Alderman Solomon is suggesting, or for a topic of discussion. But the suggestion that Alderman Evans made here too about having such as non-voting members of the board. Could you describe what would take place if they were non-voting members of the board?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Nordstrom, I think, when you get into, our board is a volunteer board.
Yes.
They're there to become the best aviation experts that they can, so you don't necessarily have to get that far down into the weeds. You guys look at the members, the mayor goes through the people who want to be appointed, fill out an application. The mayor goes through, meets with them maybe, and picks the best qualified, and you, the council, vote on those folks that are there. At the end of the day, though, they're volunteers, and they do this because they feel like it's the best thing to do for the community and something that they feel that they can have an impact on. It's difficult to get even our volunteers that do have that vote to sometimes feel like they're valued enough in doing the job that they're doing, because it does take time. And to be I guess in my humble opinion, it's difficult for them. So for a non-voting member, I think that would be difficult as well.
Thank you. And sorry to interrupt. The other area of concern is the firefighters utilizing that, the airport utilizing the fire department. Can you sell me on that a little bit further? There's a lot of other questions I have for you, and maybe I can get that addressed in the second reading, but could you sell me on the firefighter part of it?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Nordstrom, I think, in a comment, that I can directly make to Jason there, they do a very good job. This isn't about us in the fire department. The ordinance was put in place over a conflict. Sometimes good intentions don't always do the right thing on stuff. I don't think it was ever the airport's intent to not use the city fire department, but it was also not the airport's intent to have an ordinance put in place that gave them no other option. So the issue that we come in under, and I would draw a comparison that there's no ordinance requiring all city travel be through the Rapid City Regional Airport. So, from that side of things, when we look at it, we do think they provide a very good and a very safe service for our operation. But, when it comes to us having to meet and negotiate over fair market value on stuff, when we have no ability to do anything else other than that, there's no reason for anybody to negotiate in those circumstances.
Thank you, Director. I'm going to have to yield, so thank you.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see it may be appropriate here to split this question. I don't know how procedurally that would happen, but if we could vote on them separately.
We can divide the item into two questions. One question can be the board membership and the other can be the fire service.
Yeah, I think it would help a lot of this convolution that's going on, because I do see sides here, Mr. Mayor, that we maybe need more time on one or the other of these, because it's
Okay, is there any objection on the council to dividing this item into two questions? Okay, so let's consider that done.
And did you want an motion on those two items, or?
Well, I believe the motion that Alderman Solomon made is
Would be good
relevant
for one?
more to the first question of board membership.
Okay.
Am I representing that accurately, Jason? So if it's okay with you, we can leave that motion stand for now and continue the discussion.
I would like to continue the other one.
I'm sorry?
I would like to make a motion to continue the fire department one.
Let's dispose of this first, and we'll go right into that, okay?
Can I speak on this one, then, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, you may.
Okay. I heard a lot of conversation up here, and there's a couple things going on. Our city is built upon our communities around us. We get that. I've had a really good discussion with the director at the airport there, and I believe that with the 7-board member, I think that's an awesome idea, because then it keeps that concentration of power spread out farther. I think what they go through at the airport to learn that job as a board member out there, from my understanding of him, is pretty intensive, pretty extensive. And yep, we're gonna be facing some golf balls coming down a garden hose in the future, and I think they're preparing for that from my conversation with them. And I would like the rest of my colleagues to have those same conversations with them. I don't think it at this time is appropriate to bring in outside members into that board, because it'll convolute a lot of the great things they got going on and the great connection that the city has. But also the city and I believe the director there, if they need that input from outside that area, they're highly capable of getting that, and I think people will give that input. I think we do that here at the city council on a regular basis. We have people come to us who aren't necessarily in the city, but they're stakeholders around the city. I've heard the mayor make comments about that before. And we do a lot of business with Wyoming. I mean, seriously, they use that airport probably as much as anybody from going east 25 miles. So I think we'd be heading down a slippery slope that way. But I do believe that our board, and just talking to the director here, that he understands the big picture of involving these people into that process. I don't think they necessarily need a vote. I think that they can handle that. I like the idea of the 7 members coming from Rapid City, and the training that they have is extensive, so it gives them some institutional knowledge going forward. So I would support Alderman Solomon's motion. And for that reason, I mean, if we talk about taxation and stuff, well, if you go to Menard's parking lot, you'll see what goes on up there. You got Wyoming, you got North Dakota, and if we start including them all in our city council here, you could obviously see what would transpire there. So I think that we have a good board, good director and a good board that can handle that input. They can take that input, and if it's going to work for what they're trying to do, and they got a big picture, a real big picture they're working on, they're going to bring to the council. And there may be some time when that needs to be considered, but I don't think this is appropriate time. So thank you.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mayor, for your clarification that the motion on the floor is to have 7 members, all from the city limits of Rapid City or its plating jurisdiction. And I would not support that motion. I would support the original ordinance that was brought to us for tonight, the revisions, because it does not mandate that 2 members have to be from outside of Rapid City or its plating jurisdiction. It says no more than 2 more members may reside outside of the city's plating jurisdiction in Pennington County, Custer County, Lawrence County, or Meade County. All remaining members shall be residents of the city or of the city's extraterritorial plating jurisdiction as provided in SDCL Chapter 11-6. I would support this because we're not mandating, in this proposal that was before us originally tonight, we would not be mandating inclusion of 2 members from outside of Rapid City. We would just be allowing up to 2, and that's the ordinance that I could support. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
Thank you, Councilman Stroman. I couldn't agree with you more on that. I'm kind of a bigger tent person anyway. I think more voices and more viewpoints kind of add to any group that you work with, including this one. You know, when I think of Rapid City, I think of the metro area. I don't just think of Rapid City, I think of 170,000 people that inhabit, you know, the cities in western South Dakota. And I would think that it would be imperative for them to have some say, if they want to, on our airport and how it starts developing. And they might have great different ideas on how they want to use the airport or how we could make it a better resource for them. Patrick, could I ask you, is there anything that would be like a determinant in whether or not they get on the board? Would it be determined by population, or have you even thought that far, or just 3 different counties that you've thought about?
Mr. Mayor, Alderwoman Drew, in terms of population, we didn't look at population as being a factor. We looked at the ring of service. Our primary catchment area service ring is what we looked at.
Can you tell me what that service ring is again, please?
So we basically, it was a 50-mile ring from the center.
Okay.
And then those counties that were considered within that 50-mile ring. So it could be someone from Wall, it could be someone from Spearfish. You know, and again, that would be up to application and then selection by the mayor and approval by the council.
And experience probably would matter, and then they have to go through training and things like that. But I really like what Mr. Stroman pointed out, is that it could be. It doesn't have to be. we can allow this. And did you say it's also a funding opportunity for us, or expand some funding opportunities? I'm sorry, I was out of town for the Wednesday meeting, so.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Drew, right now, at this point, there would be no funding tied to this.
Okay.
But if we were to look down the future towards going to a regional airport authority, I think you've got the potential for that. And again, it's looking at the buy-in. This is where I kind of mentioned the chicken or the egg. Do you seek it when you need to do something like that, or do you seek it when you can build the relationships and then build the case for what's there?
Okay, well, I would go for the original motion. That's what I would like to support tonight. Thank you.
Bill Evans for 2 minutes.
I just want to make one comment. If the intent is to bring in outside ideas, simply adding 2 more members from Rapid City does not accomplish that. And we could keep increasing the size of the board, 7, 9, 10, 50. If they're all from Rapid City, we haven't done anything. So I think Mr. Nordstrom's idea of having non-voting members accomplishes that and avoids the whole problem of people complaining about people, you know, that shouldn't be voting on Rapid City policy, making decisions. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Laura Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, would you be so kind to clarify how the actual application process happens when people are applying for these boards?
Sure. Typically, the city, or in this case, maybe even the airport, would advertise for board member opening and list the duties and duration of the term. We would then take applications from a form on our website, which would all come to me. I would look them over, read about them, ask the airport director if he's referred any of them to me, or if there's any other knowledge of any of them, and then ultimately make a decision based on choosing the one that seems to be the most appropriate at the time. Experience matters, absolutely. Pat Jones, 2 minutes.
Very briefly, with due respect to my colleagues and their idea of a non-voting, a non-voting member, it would be like me asking a girl to prom but then telling her she can't dance. I don't think it accomplishes anything. In fact, I think it could be counterproductive. Well, we want you to give up all your time, but your vote doesn't count. They're either in or they're out, I think, to get the best objective and the best things accomplished. So I could not support the idea of non-voting members. I do support Mr. Stroman of what he said. I think he explained it wonderfully, and that is what I will be supporting tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, debate on this motion has closed, and again, the reminder, the motion is to add 2 members to the airport board for a total of 7, all required to be Rapid City residents. So on that motion, let's take a roll call vote, please.
Jones?
No.
Lehman?
No.
Solomon? Evans? Drew?
No.
Nordstrom?
No.
Weifenbach?
Aye.
Roberts? Stroman? Armstrong? Motion fails 7-3.
Okay, that substitute motion fails 7-3, and now I believe that puts us back to the original item and the original motion, which was to approve the board membership as 7, with 2 of those members, no more than 2 of those members, allowed to be a maximum of 50 miles from the airport. Motion approval by Jones, second by Armstrong. All in favor of that motion, say, well, let's go to a roll call. If you understand the motion, then let's go to a roll call.
Roberts? Stroman? Armstrong? Jones?
Aye.
Lehman?
Aye.
Solomon? Evans? Drew?
Yes.
Nordstrom?
Aye.
Weifenbach?
No.
Motion passes 6-4.
Okay, thank you. That item is resolved now. Now we're going to take up the second question in item 36, and that is pertaining to the fire service, and I would entertain a motion on that question now. Mr. Weifenbach, I believe, want to make that motion.
I move to continue it to give some of my colleagues a little bit more time to.
Motion to continue and second by Bill Evans. Do you know how long you would want to continue for?
Next meeting would be fine, Mr. Mayor.
Meeting March 15th?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
I would just point out there's an ordinance that this is all part of a single ordinance, so you've approved part of it. I mean, I think it was wise to divide the question on the controversial parts of the ordinance, but this is first reading. So second reading would be the next meeting. So right now you have one ordinance, so I don't know how we continue part of the ordinance but approve part of the ordinance unless you want to have second reading of the whole ordinance next week or continue and have first reading, like a continued first reading of the whole ordinance.
Well, thanks for making that easier to understand.
This is one ordinance as it sits.
It was all drafted as one ordinance with all these changes. So the question is, what are you approving for first reading? Right now, you approved first reading as proposed as it related to the board. If Alderman Solomon's motion had passed, then for second reading, we would have brought it forward as changing the membership to match what you voted on tonight. So I guess if you want to keep it the language on the fire department out for second reading, and then if at second reading you decide to leave the language about the fire department in there, then it's going to require another reading.
Okay. I'm fine with that. I just think that they should be separate items. They're complete and separate. And so, I mean, having them together as one ordinance doesn't make any sense to me. So.
It was an amendment to the entire chapter involving the airport.
Right.
And one of the changes was the board composition, and
I'm
another
okay with
change
it being
was
separate,
the...
and I appreciate the explanation, but leave it up to the rest of my
So am I
colleagues.
to understand that then you'd be okay with approving on first reading and then just continue this for 2 weeks, or did I catch that wrong?
Yeah, we're going to approve what was passed earlier and then just continue this for 2 weeks to give my colleagues an opportunity to find out if what's all entailed in this.
And the city attorney's telling you there's a glitch in that because...
Well, if you...
He can separate them, right?
Well, I think if you send what's currently drafted with the... Right now, we're back to the original ordinance, but there's still a question about the fire department or whether or not the language about the fire department should stay in. So you could approve first reading tonight of what's there, and then at second reading in 2 weeks, if you wanted to add back in the language on the fire department, somebody could make a motion to add that language back in, or you could approve second reading without the fire department language in there, and then it would be done. But if you added the fire department language back in, then it would require another reading, because that would be a substantial change at
That's the
second
way I
reading.
understood it, would be keeping them separate, and then our next reading on the first ordinance that passed would be just simply that, and a first reading if on whatever they...
Well, they aren't separate ordinances right now. So if you change part of it,
Well, this is an interesting problem.
I'm going to let someone else tackle this,
Mr. Mayor, can I make a suggestion?
John Roberts has a suggestion. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've already had a vote on this. We know where it's going to go. Why don't we just take the whole ordinance the way it is and just move it forward for 2 weeks? Just as if we didn't separate the question, because it already got voted on. We know where it's going to go. I believe we could do that, Mr. Landine. We can just take the whole ordinance as it sits and put it off for...
We can unapprove the first question.
You don't really have to unapprove it. It's there. It's already in the ordinance. We're just moving the whole ordinance 2 weeks.
Joel? Joel?
Yeah, I mean, that was the problem, is I didn't know how you were continuing one part of the ordinance, like first reading, but the other part you'd already voted on. So yes, I think Alderman Roberts is right. The whole thing, whether it has the fire department in it or not, needs to be brought forward to the next meeting, or the second reading in 2 weeks.
And then in 2 weeks, will we re-vote on the board member composition? Or is that, do we consider that?
I think that question has been resolved.
All right. Okay, I'm good enough on it. The motion is to continue, and we have a second for that, and no one else wants to speak, so who's in favor of continuing? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Whew. All right, we got it. Thanks, everyone. Now we're going to move on to community development items, starting with item 37. A request by Long Branch Civil Engineering for Park Hill Development for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed Tract 1 and lots 1 through 8 of Block 1, lots 1 through 20, of Block 2 of Park Hill Subdivision Number 7, generally described as being located west of Sydney Drive and Bridgeview Drive. The recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Jason Solomon, approved with stipulations, and the second was Pat Jones. Okay, all in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 38, a request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Capital LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 through 2 of Block 1, Lot 1 through 12 of Block 2, lots 1 through 34 of Block 3, lots 1 through 2 of Block 4. Lots 1 through 2 of Block 5, lots 1 through 34 of Block 6, and lots 1 through 2 of Block 7 of Antelope View Estates, generally described as being located at the intersection of North Valley Drive and East Philadelphia Street. And again, the recommendation is to approve with stipulations. I think that was Roberts first, made the motion, and a second by Lehman. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 39, a request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Capital 4 for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed Lot 1R of Block 7 of North Valley Park Subdivision, generally described as being located south of North Valley Drive. Recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Motion by Drew, second by Nordstrom. All in favor of that motion say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 40, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Buffalo East for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 through 13 of Block 4 of Buffalo Crossing Subdivision, generally described as being located at 7223 Healing Way. The recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Pat Jones makes that motion, and Darla Drew makes the second. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now to public hearing items 41 through 50. There are no speaker requests on these items, so we will not have a public hearing. But now we'll have consent public hearing items 41 through 44. Motion to approve by Lehman and a second by Roberts. All in favor of approving 41 through 44, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And that's the end of consent. Non-consent public hearing items. That's a typo. It's really not item 458 through 50. Number 45, second reading ordinance 6465, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by Keith Johnson for David and Kara Wise for a rezoning from General Agricultural District to Light Industrial District for property generally described as being located west of Creek Drive at the terminus of Rocker Drive. Motion to approve Nordstrom, second by Roberts. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 46, second reading ordinance 6466, an ordinance amending Section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Yasmin Dream LLC for rezoning from General Agricultural District to Medium Density Residential District for property generally described as being located south of North Valley Park. Motion approved by Drew, second by Nordstrom. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 47, second reading, ordinance 6467. An ordinance amending Section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Yasmin Dream LLC for rezoning from Light Industrial District to Medium Density Residential District for property generally described as being located south of North Valley Drive. Motion to approve by Pat Jones and a second by Nordstrom. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I think that was item 47. Was it? Okay, item 48. Second reading, ordinance 6468, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Capital 4 for rezoning from General Agricultural District to Low Density Residential District 2 for property generally described as being located south of North Valley Drive. Motion approved by Drew and a second by Solomon. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 49, second reading, ordinance 6469, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Capital 4 for rezoning from General Agricultural District to Medium Density Residential District for property generally described as being located south of North Valley Drive. Motion to approve by Jones, second by Nordstrom. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 50. Second reading, ordinance 6470, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Capital 4 for rezoning from Low Density Residential District 2 to Medium Density Residential District for property generally described as being located near the intersection of North Valley Drive and East Philadelphia Street. Motion to approve, Nordstrom. Second by Drew. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Anyone want to take a recess? Item number 51 is the bill list, and we will turn to Finance Director Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so that the total is that which is attached at $10,898,099.39.
Motion approved, Solomon. Second by Jones. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn, Stroman. Second by Lehman. All in favor say aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.